Good morning, kids.
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to Playa del Rey.
Yeah, our Tuesday TeaFlix Terriers.
Absolutely.
And I'm not really going to waffle on today because we've got a wonderful guest whom Ruth is going to bring on board now, and the rest will be revealed very shortly.
So we did a little video about an hour and a half ago to get you guys all pumped up for this lovely lady. Her name is Manda Kalimian, and she lives on the East Coast, Long Island, I believe. We'll talk about that. Anyway, she's the founder of the CANA, C-A-N-A Foundation, and she's all about rewilding native species. Hopefully she can save the planet. If there's anybody who can, it's a woman. God only knows. And working with wild horses and local native flora and fauna. She's an author. She's an environmental activist. She's a philanthropist. And without further ado, I will click this magic button and hopefully there she is.
Hello.
Hello, ladies.
Hello, darling.
Hi. Great to have you.
How are you lovely ladies today?
We're splendid, thank you. And you?
I am well. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, it's our pleasure, I promise you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So congratulations on all the media you've been getting. Yesterday, the LA Times, and today the
Long
Island business.
Yeah.
Well done, you.
Thank you. Wait, let me put my smart glasses on. I like to wear them to make me seem smarter.
No, well,
I actually am.
I'll put my 99-cent store glasses on. I don't know if they make me seem smarter, but hey, whatever works, right?
That's right. You got to do what you can.
Yeah, sure.
With what you got.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yes, I was very excited that yesterday we had a big breakthrough and the LA Times picked up our op-ed talking about rewilding our wild horses and our native lands and why that's critically important.
Absolutely. Simon Mills says g'day, and we've got some of our usual folks on here, Sammy Starshine and Rick. So welcome. So how on earth were you interested in horses and or the environment? Which came first, the chicken, the egg, the green or the horses?
Oh my God. Well, I have to say the horses, but since the horses lived in the environment, it sort of just was a big 50 Shades of Gray. Ooh,
naughty.
Oh, no, so it's kind of fun to be naughty when you're so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's always been about the horses for me. Always couldn't have a horse without grass, have a horse without a place to ride it. So it just sort of seemed like the natural evolution of things.
So did you ride as a child? Did you grow up riding horses as a child?
You know, I did actually. It's a quick little story and I talk about it in my book. My parents lived in the city and we used to come out to the island on the weekends, and we always called it the country. And anybody who lived out here said, "What do you mean the country? This is a suburb. This is the country." But you know, it had grass, and there was a little teeny roadside stop with two ponies all dressed up with ribbons and bows. I was 3. And so he used to pull over to the side of the road. I used to get pony rides. And ever since then, it was a fait accompli. It was love.
Wow.
Oh, wonderful.
That's amazing. So tell the folks about, obviously, if you want to go visit Manda's site, it's scrolling across the bottom ticket. It's canafoundation.org. How did that all, what was the genesis of it? Because building a nonprofit foundation is a huge task. But it's one task at a time, right?
Yes, it is a huge task and a huge undertaking. And, I'm always honest. That's a failing of mine. But, I think there's at least 2 or 3 times a year that I quit because I don't think I quit my job. I quit my day job because I don't think I can do it. And then I wake up the next day and I say, shoot, well, how can I quit? Because if I don't do it, who's going to do it? So I appreciate you saying that. It is a huge undertaking, and it just was sort of just evolved. I received an email one day, like anybody would, back in 2007, and it was a petition to be signed that said, stop horse slaughter in this country. And I actually had no idea that horse slaughter was happening in this country, and like many, many people. So when I dug a little bit deeper, I learned that racehorses mostly, wild horses. It's shocking if you were to know that oftentimes it's summer camp ponies and horses that people don't want to pay to keep through the winter So they send all these animals to auction houses, and the auction houses sell these horses by the pound to the kill buyers, which are truckers that purchase them and then would drive them over the Canadian and Mexican borders and sell them for meat. And we were slaughtering these animals, and then they were being sent overseas to Europe for meat. Imagine you send your child to camp,
Yeah.
and you have a little child, and on visiting day, you look, this is my pony, and you're feeding it carrots, right? And camp is over, and the next thing you know, it's on a truck, and
then it's on a menu in Marseille, and they're charging a fortune for it.
Correct. And it was your child's pony that taught that child, took care of that child. I mean, so when I realized this was happening, as mortified as I was, I reached out to a local rescue here in my area. She was busy, of course, as she would be, taking care of all of the horses she was rescuing from these kill pens. So I drove out there to see her. She gave me, a quick education. I left there hysterically crying because I could not believe that this was happening, and how could I not know? So of course, what was a girl to do? A girl called. What we always do, we buy things via mail order. So I called up the slaughterhouse, and I told them exactly what this woman had told me to say, which is a horrible thing to say, but she said, what horses do you have that are worth saving? I don't know how you determine that. Ones that were not limping around on 3 legs, or ones that could make it. I mean, horrible. And I whipped out my little debit card, and I purchased 4 horses sight unseen from this kill buyer from the shop.
By the pound.
Oh,
yeah. Can you imagine? And called my shipper that I used up here. And I said, Gail, I just bought 4 horses from the auction house in New Jersey. And there was silence at the other end of the phone.
yeah.
So therein started the journey. And I decided I had to speak up for these horses. And as the journey evolved, I realized that it's really wild horses. The wild horses are all the horses, but the wild horses represent everything, our environment, our history, our culture. And I've been laser focused ever since.
And so do you think that it is because, do certain cultures consider horses invasive species, for example?
So it's interesting that you phrase the question that way, because over in Europe, Europeans accept and see horses in a whole different light than Americans do here. America thinks wild horses are invasive. They are an invasive species. The government here considers them an invasive species. We only see them as domesticated versions of a pet, right, or something.
Right.
Over in Europe, they see them as an integral part of their natural system, an integral part of their world and their life. So they value them in the same historical and cultural way that they would, but they understand the value of the horse as a globally native species and why they play such an important role in their environmental systems, which is the work that I'm doing and trying to bring that information forward.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean that's a very interesting dichotomy, though. If you think about the Europeans, think of them as part of the history and the land culture and agriculture and so on. Is that possibly why in some countries they are still considered food, just like cows, sheep, and goats are?
That's a good point that you raise, and I think that's interesting because that's a flip, right? So here in America,
we would never eat them.
You would never consider eating horse meat. That's just taboo here.
Right.
And that's so interesting how the Europeans think. They will eat horse meat there, but yet they see them in a different value. So it's just, I guess that's just the culture. Europe is so much older than we are, and it's just a different mindset, I guess. I can't imagine how you see, horses are your best friend and your companions, and you see them roaming around in your field, and then, it's a little tartare for dinner. But Americans, there are there are studies out, 85% of the American people do not believe horses should ever be eaten. And they're not part of the food chain.
No, the dogs, cats, horses, because I guess we see them as pets, right? But how many people in America, they come into contact with a horse, it's either in a petting zoo or a pony ride or equestrian lessons or a very high-end, sport like, a polo ground or something. There are really not a lot of Americans, I would imagine, that have had an experience with wild horses. And so when you try to explain to somebody what rewilding is and why horses are such a big part of it, what is that sort of, what's the beginning of that mission statement? How do you bring people around to your way of thinking that they are part of that whole ecosystem?
Well, good question. And the way you asked it, because it is a complicated set of events, you have to dissect. It's sort of like three separate topics. First, you have to say, did you know you have wild horses here in this country? Because people don't understand that. And then I will always say to them, did you know that they belong to you? Because they belong to the American people.
Yes.
Right? They belong to all of us. And then I would say, do you know you have public range? There are public rangelands here that belong to you as well. And that you, the American citizen, are paying federal tax dollars to support the public rangelands. And your federal tax dollars are to the tune of $120 million a year are being used to round up the wild horses that belong to you. So that's the first hurdle I have to overcome, is that there is this situation. There are horses and this is the situation. And then we discuss why this happens to them and why it's important that they are not an invasive species and that they are part of the natural system. And with climate change, pandemics, and all that we are facing now, why it's important that grassland ecology is valuable to us.
Yes.
Right. One of our regular friends, Rick, is asking, and I'll put the question up here. Have you done any work with actress Kaylee Cuoco? She's a huge horse lover and owner, and she'd most likely get behind your cause in a heartbeat. I don't know if you knew about that or about her, but
I do. I know of that. I think she's even married her horse trainer. If that's
yes, that's right.
And we would love to work with her. Good call.
well,
if anybody has any inroads to
I'll try and find a contact for you on that one.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm reading the comments. I'm not very good at. Joanne Grubb said the whole horse food thing, the horse meat and by the pound is new to her. I'm horrified. And frankly, until I read your book, it was new to me as well. I never really I thought all horses got rescued and, died old and happy. Like I was telling you yesterday, our friend Jim Gath has the Tierra Madre Horse Sanctuary. And I just know from the day-to-day from him of running that the vet's bills are crippling and the hay price has gone through the roof. And, how on earth are we going to resolve all this?
Just imagine, if you can imagine what it is, for dogs and cats. Imagine what it is, the money that goes into shelters and having to home these animals, dogs and cats. Imagine that at 1,200 pounds.
Yes.
Right? And so that is why all of this is really such an ominous task. But if we are forward thinking and we look at these things from a global, a larger perspective, and we look at our lands, at our landscape, and we take a look at ourselves, for me, the horses are man's mirror. They've always been, they are the essence, they are spiritual beings.
Right.
And, if you know anything, horses are the greatest healers. There are just hundreds of various therapeutic programs revolving around horses. And you have to say to yourself, horses, well, they're not camels. We don't work with sheep or goats or lambs in that capacity. It's the horses that heal us. And so they are showing us what we need to know. And they're showing us that we need to work environmentally and see globally why land is important. And if there's land, there's more land for horses and more health, right? open spaces is a healthier opportunity for us, for climate change, for pandemics.
Right.
We have to be forward thinking, like your friend who has the sanctuary that is just amazing. But
Yeah.
he needs help. He needs land.
Yeah.
He needs a place to put the horses.
Yeah, he's in Cave Creek, Arizona, but he is surrounded by other properties. And recently, one of his neighbors bought some all-terrain vehicles that had been spooking his horses. And, one thing led to another, and he went out to calm one of his horses in the middle of the night, and it bucked and bolted. And, of course, it didn't mean to kick him, but it kicked him against a metal fence, and he broke 3 ribs. So this is the problem. But even though he's in Cave Creek, Arizona, he's trying to do what he's trying to do in the middle of an urban city north of Phoenix, Arizona, which is one of the fastest, Maricopa County is the fastest growing county in the nation. Yes. And really, they need wild land.
Well, that's the thing. We need to be able to help people like this gentleman with land so he can, in turn, take the rescue horses and start to build novel ecosystems. Yeah. And then people could come and see them, and he can say, look what's happening. We need to give him the science and help him to manage this opportunity. And then people will come to see the value of the horses, what it is, why we are working environmentally all together. So the horses are homed. We're helping the environment. We're mitigating carbon, right? Which is how we're going to slow down climate breakdown and change. And then we're educating people, and he will get more help.
And maybe we should go back to riding horses instead of damn cars and trucks.
Oh, very good. I'm right there with you. Wait, can I just tell you something? Just because you said, oh my God, I got, I have a truck. I love my truck. I have it for 9 years, 10 years now. Every girl's got to have a pickup truck, right? But I decided, I said, well, it's just the worst environmentally, and I can't be talking this talk and driving this truck. So I got a Ford Mustang battery. A little car, a Mach-E. It's got the battery.
Classic. Well, yeah, even one of our most famous cars is called a Mustang, right?
Yes.
So, America was built on horses and carts. And here's an interesting little piece of trivia. The space shuttle has its 2 booster rockets, and the O-rings inside the booster rockets, and there are 3 of them, were made in another state. They were made, I believe, in California, and had to be shipped ground, obviously, over to Cape Canaveral in Florida. And thus, they had to be shipped by train. Therefore, working backwards from that, they had to go through a train tunnel. And then when the train tunnel was built, that was the width of 2 horses' asses.
Yeah.
So the width of 2 horses' asses actually is responsible for the size of the O-rings and the booster rockets of the space shuttle. So there you go.
And speaking of horses' asses, no, I won't.
I was going to say everything comes back to a horse's ass.
Yeah.
That's, it could well be.
Funnily enough, yeah, but we're not going there.
So we talked a little bit yesterday about not just the horses, because they need all of the, the native plants and all of those things. But I think a lot of what we've done damage to is trying to force species to grow in places where they shouldn't. Like there are people in resorts in Western Scotland planting palm trees and wondering why they fail. Duh.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you were saying that in your garden, you've actually replanted the native species.
Yes.
Yes. So I've taken the farm, and so there's 16 acres here in Nassau County on the North Shore of Long Island. So with 16 acres, I'm a veritable
farmer.
I'm a veritable farmer. And so what I did was I just stopped. I just stopped. I stopped mowing. I stopped fertilizing. Being the land baron that we are here at 16 acres, I said, you know what? No more poisons, no more anything. Stop. So for about 4 or 5 years, I let everything just do what it wanted to do. I said, nature, show me who you are and who I am and what I should do and what I have to know. And I will tell you a funny story. My husband would drive in here and he would say, oh my God, it looks like we're in foreclosure. And and the thing about it is we are so trained that everything has to be manicured and we have to look the same, right? Every house on every block has to look like this, and the shrubs and the landscaping. And I, no. And now what I did was, I'm working with a gentleman that works with me here, and we've taken out all the invasive plants that have grown, right, that were here, and everything is a native species, the plants. I have an apiary with bees. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask you about bees. Yes.
Yes, we have tons of birds here because I feed the birds so that they all come here, and we have an apiary with honeybees. So if you see the pollinator path I've created and all the native plants, I am so busy mitigating carbon here. And then when you should see the biodiversity that's occurred just from the flowers, all the wildflowers that are native and have come. And can I just say one little interesting thing that really, I've known it, but I saw it so clearly today since we're talking about this. There's one specific field I have where I will hand graze horses. They have big fields that they go out in, but I hand graze them in this one specific field. So half the field is wild and free. I do nothing. And the other half, the horses hand graze. If you see the grass that I have on the side where the horses graze, versus all of the invasive species that have grown on the side that they do not graze. So the horses, by stimulating the growth of the grass, by eating it and eating everything down, they keep the invasives away.
Wow. How interesting.
Tell Manda the story about Eddie's friend Billy and the goat.
Oh, yes. Many, many years ago, my first husband came home from work one night and he said, my friend Billy at work is going away on holiday and he's asked us if we'll look after his goat. And I said, okay, this was like a 2 up and 2 down house in a rural, in a housing estate.
In Liverpool.
And we had a long back garden with, I hate to say it, long grass, because nobody ever went out and cut the grass. So on the Friday night, Billy brought over the goat in his truck, took it out in the back garden, hammered a stake in the middle of the lawn with a piece of rope, got the goat, tied it to the neck brace on the goat. And he said, the only thing he likes to eat is, what was it?
Bounty bars.
Bounty bars, which is in English, Cadbury's chocolate.
No, they have them here.
Bounty bars and cigarettes. So he said,
tobacco.
A bowl of water and some Bounty bars. Take the paper off first. He doesn't like the paper. And cigarette. So like a fool, I did this. And when I came down the first morning and looked out, there was a whole bald circle.
Perfect mode circle.
He'd walked around all night. He'd had his ciggies and his chocolate. Living in heaven he was. And he mowed the lawn for us. So what did? We moved the stake to another area so we'd have a different circle. And by the time Billy came home from his holiday, we had a nice, neat backyard and a very happy goat.
I love that.
I can't get over the fact that he would eat cigarettes, but I suppose tobacco is a native plant, and in those days they probably didn't put chemicals in the cigarettes like they do now.
Many years ago,
of course. And Native American tribes, indigenous people, consider tobacco one of the most sacred medicines.
Yes,
that's right.
Don't be telling my husband that. I'm trying to get him to quit, but he does smoke American spirits, and they are the light ones. So he breaks down and has a ciggy.
Well, we were just out in the Dakotas, and we were out with the CANA team. You know members of the team well.
Yes.
And we had to stop off and find some loose tobacco, the American Spirit one, to bring as an honor, an offering.
Oh,
yes,
that's great. Yeah,
because we had an amazing presentation from a gentleman who does this amazing powwow horse dance. It's a ceremony. It's a spiritual horse dance, and we were honored in being able to witness that. So we brought him some loose tobacco. As an honoring, as a gift, yes.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, tobacco in its purest form, absolutely. It's like anything in its purest form, but mankind has to go and screw everything up and put Did you know the average Marlboro Red cigarette has over 5,006 chemicals in it, and and the other thing apart from nicotine that makes them so addictive is they actually add chocolate powder. They put cocoa in it.
They do?
Yep, to make it more addicting.
Now we're back to Hershey bars, chocolate bars, and cigarettes from my goat friend.
Hence, yes. See? So the goat was probably addicted to both chocolate and cigarettes.
I'm sure. Oh my God. It's really, I wanted to tell you this quick little bit of information, and it's fascinating because we were talking about invasive species and these kinds of things. So when I met Ross, Dr. Ross McPhee, who is the senior curator of the Mammalogy and Zoology department at the American Museum of Natural History, and he is the foundation science advisor and helped to, he's got a couple chapters in the book and he helped me write it all, but we were talking about native invasive and all of this. And the first thing he said to me was, which is so shocking, when you think of the American West, if you were to go back to a John Wayne movie or any kind of black and white thing, you see, a bank, a wood building, right? Yeah. Big, dirt. Saloon, dust flying, and then you see tumbleweed.
Yes.
Right?
Well, tumbleweed is an invasive species.
Yeah.
It came over from Asia.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I didn't know where it came from, but I know that we used to, when I worked in commercials on the production side, I used to have to go out if we were shooting. We shot all the Marlboro commercials. One of my ex-boyfriends was the last Marlboro man. And so we were shooting out in, up near Sacramento somewhere, north of Lancaster, between sort of central eastern California. And that was one of my first jobs. I was like given this big truck and said, don't come back till it's full up with tumbleweeds. Well, okay. Have you ever tried to catch a tumbleweed in the wind?
That's a good trick. But that's the thing. When people think about the American West, what is the visual that comes to you?
That's right. Oh, absolutely. Well, and also speaking of when people think about, the American West and American culture, we're also about burgers and barbecue and the 4th of July and cattle and, beef in general. But, it's actually bison and deer and elk that are native rather than domesticated cattle, right?
Oh, 1,000% correct. 1,000% right. And bison is actually for you anyway. And,
right.
There's a big push to farm buffalo meat now. Buffalo ranch, buffalo meat, but it's so much healthier for you.
And I think
on top of any and all of it,
I believe Ted Turner.
I'm sorry, and grass.
I believe Ted Turner is big into the whole bison rewilding deal, right?
Yes. He has a lot of land and it's all buffalo. Yeah, he's done a lot of really, really good. He was ahead of his time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, even starting CNN, when just the thought of a 24/7 news network, you wouldn't have thought there'd be enough news to report. But if you put people down in every corner of the globe, there's enough news. We did a project for a company called Merit Solar Industries a couple of years ago. Put them online and built their website and everything. And they were part of the beneficiary of that whole Ted Turner Foundation. So he is very, very environmentally aware, and he speaks to a lot of the same things as you do. And he talks about, how our highways and byways and how our cities were formed. I mean, the city of Buffalo, New York, hello, where do you think that came from? Yeah. It was because it was a salt lick, and the buffalo used to follow a path, which is now I-75 or whatever. So a lot of our major highways across this country have gone in the direction and the footsteps of various wild animals that were there way, way before we were.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I spread it. Our family here on TeaFlix they're great at multiple shares and spreading the word, which is kind of why we do things like this. How can people get in touch with you? How can they help? Where can they buy the book? What's next? How can we stay in touch and help lift you and the horses and the environment up?
Well, first of all, thank you again for doing this. Thank you for doing this for the horses and for all of us, really. I mean, it's a joint effort. I don't consider myself any different than anybody else, and we're all the same, and we just have to work together. So CANA Foundation is the name of the foundation website. Like us on all the social media channels, but we provide information. Give us your email. We send out newsletters and blasts and current science and things that you should know. The book is on a pre-order right now. We're launching October 1st, but I know we have some special things if you'd like to pre-order it on borntorewild.com. And the story really is, the book gives you all the information. It tells you about my journey, some funny things, some sad things, it shows you, but this journey has shown me who I am. And
it's a wonderful read. I read it over the weekend, Manda. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
That means so much to me, really. Thank you. I just, I want to hope that it has something for everybody. If you want to empower yourself, if you need to feel better about yourself, we are all the same. And it's just how I've empowered myself to find who I am through this journey. And I believe we all have the opportunity to find that peace for ourselves in whichever, if you want to save wild horses, if it's just about what you do in your garden, towards helping, there is nothing too small or too big.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's just who you are.
Yeah, when we lived in Munich, we had a small balcony. We didn't have a garden, but we had a balcony, and I planted lots of bee-friendly flowers. And I was telling you yesterday about my girlfriend, Chef Manu Bafara in Curitiba in Brazil. She has literally turned Curitiba into a honey-making town. She's given away bee houses to everyone. And the other interesting thing, we touched on it yesterday, was when people move I had some friends recently moved to the Atlanta area, and he's like, oh, my kids have developed the worst allergies. And well, of course, when you move to a place that has either magnolia trees or pollen that you're not used to, but the best way to combat that is eat the local honey, because you're getting little tiny bits of the pollen, which eventually you'll build up an immunity to the allergies, right?
Yes. Oh my God. And that's such an important tip.
Yeah.
You don't really suffer. It's so good for you, but it helps to prevent them from coming 100%. But if I could I wanted to say one thing when you asked what people could do. Being aware and informed is first and foremost, because to be quite honest, the American people don't know about many, many things that are happening, and they don't know where their tax dollars are going. So here I'm saying $120 million of your federal tax hard-earned money is going to round up wild horses and pay to keep them in government holding pens. So the government can lease out land to agricultural farming, where we're not even feeding the American people. People are starving in this country, but we're exporting meat overseas, right? We are oil fracking and drilling, mineral companies, coal companies, all things that are destroying the environment, destroying the land, and they are not serving the American people. They're not serving the greater good. So if you have this information and you know it to be true, so what do you need to do? You need to have a voice, and you need to tell your legislators, I don't want my money spent that way. You need to speak up. And when it comes time to vote, you need to be an informed voter and vote for things that matter. If the environment is important to you and the wild horses come along with that, then vote for people that support environmental initiatives. Yeah. But we need to talk about things.
Yeah.
So I would ask your viewers, tell somebody. If this resonates, please tell somebody.
And there's nothing wrong with tell a teacher. If you're seeing this, tell your teacher, and maybe get the teacher to do a show and give a class on it, and do a Q&A or a show and tell, because obviously kids are now empowered through this thing called the interwebs, and they know how to use it better than probably all the three of us do. And I think that's a great way to get good information. I'd like to see the internet turn back into something that's being used for good and not evil, frankly. And so, no, I couldn't agree with you more. Information is power, and power is legislation, and legislation is equality, right?
Oh my God, we need to take back our government.
Yeah.
Equality. You just said everything when you said equality.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
we absolutely do. And, you know, we don't get political on this show because you do lose half of your audience. But I think that, you know, there are good and bad on both sides. And that's why the company color of McCartney Multimedia is purple, because if you add red and blue, you get purple.
Yes, and listen, we have to work together. There is no
Right.
Yeah, sure.
The truth is always somewhere in the middle.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I have learned so much from your book, Manda. Amazing.
Well,
It's put me down a new path, I tell you.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you.
At 91, there's nothing wrong with getting a new path.
I know what to get her for a 92nd birthday now: a saddle and some spurs.
You never know. What you might wish. You might have a little horse might be delivered right to the back door. You never know.
Step stool to climb up.
Yeah. She'll need two handsome Native Americans to help.
Oh, that'll do nice.
Help her up on the horse.
Yeah,
that may not be so hard to find.
No, they're pretty gorgeous. Well,
okay.
Thank you so much today for joining us. And I know you've got a lot of press interviews and stuff today, so we appreciate the slot in your busy time.
Oh, no.
And thank you to Dr. Simon Mills and the folks at Imagine and Wonder. And we'll do it again when the book comes out. Let's pick some anecdotes and some stories and get people to do a bit more of a Q&A here.
Oh, that was so fun. Thank you. And you know what? You know who's a great guest? Ross.
Great. Absolutely.
Oh, my God. He's such a fun and great guest. And our little stories and anecdotes.
Great.
I have also been tapped on the digital shoulder and told to ask you, what is your Indian name?
Well, my Indian name is Wobliska.
Okay.
White feather.
Oh,
God
no.
Almighty.
White feather, John Lennon.
Do you know the John Lennon story?
Somewhere a long time ago, somebody said that. I don't usually tell my it's sort of but feathers are messages.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're messages from spirit, and white, sort of represents spirit. And because eagles, raptors, they fly. Native Americans, they.
Yep.
Well, let Ruth tell you about John Lennon.
Message down, and
so when John Lennon was visiting with Julian, he was young. He said they were having a father-son conversation, and I'm paraphrasing, but it went something like, when I'm dead and gone, if ever you see a white feather come to you, it's a message from me. It's a message of carry on. It's a message of hope. It's a message of you're on the right path. And Julian I think he was a teenager, and he, took it to heart, didn't really think much about it. Well, tragically, in December of 1980, we lost John Lennon, and these white feathers started appearing in Julian's life. And the first one was when he went to Australia. He was in the middle of the outback with an Aboriginal chief, and he was looking for something, a cause and something to do, and really to occupy his artistic life and his time and his name, and lend the Lennon name and legacy to something worthwhile. And he went on this worldwide quest looking for stuff, and he was out in the middle of nowhere, no birds flying, no nothing. And the Aboriginal chief came out and greeted him, and in both of his hands was a large white feather, and he knew it was a message from John.
Yes, I understand that well. And
his foundation is called the White Feather Foundation. And recently we've been working with May Pang, John's muse and partner from the mid-70s. And almost every week through the 3-month period we were ramping up her project, I would find somewhere in the garden, in the car, or in this house, only a small one, but a white feather. We don't have any feathers in this house. I don't have a feather boa. I don't have feather furniture.
Well, so I do know the feeling, and it's all, it's all true. It's all real. It's the energy that moves us.
That's right.
We're all connected, and that's we're all connected, and everybody, there's no bad. We're all good people, and we all want the same thing, and we just need to learn to communicate about it and understand that our future is important, and it's all good.
Absolutely right. Well, what a joy, and what a way to end. Thank you, Simon, for the question. And we will do this again in October, hopefully, if you can squeeze us in.
Oh my God, I would love it. I'd so look forward to some reading. It would be so fun.
Okay, very cool. Well, thanks, kids, for joining us once again on TeaFlix. This was Manda Kalimian, the founder of the CANA, C-A-N-A Foundation.org. You can, Born to Rewild is the .com for the book. You can pre-order that. It's coming out in October. And learn all about what wonderful work she's doing at CANAFoundation.org.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
God bless.
Bye-bye.